studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
John Oliver is here. He is a comedian and a political satirist. This summer, he has been filling in as host of Comedy Central's The Daily Show, while Jon Stewart is directing his first movie.
Welcome to The Daily Show. I am John Oliver, and let's all just acknowledge for a moment that this is weird. This looks weird. It feels weird. It even sounds weird. It sounds weird to me, and this is my actual voice. Look, if you hadn't heard by now, Jon Stewart is going to be away for the summer. He's gone to a small Italian village to learn how to cobble shoes.
Since 2006, he has been the show's senior British correspondent. Here's a look at him in action, ridiculing the politics of gun control.
Meet Rob Borbidge, former Premier of Queensland, Australia's most conservative state. In 1996, he was instrumental in enacting gun control, knowing it would cost him his political career in the next election.
We paid a high political price, but we did the right thing. Look, there are Australians alive today because we took that action. I mean, how much is a life worth?
But Jim Manley knows that a true public servant has more important concerns. What makes a politician successful?
Getting re-elected by his or her constituents.
Right. Yeah. That's how you judge success.
Okay, that's... Well, getting legislation done.
Right, it's second.
Is second, yes.
So that is second. Holy that is second?
If I could rewind this tape, I'd say getting legislation done and getting re-elected by your constituents.
But seeing as we can't rewind the tape, let's just go with the answer you gave on instinct.
If you don't get re-elected, you know, you're just roadkill in the political process, and you're just another loser.
Tragically, not everyone understands this. What makes a politician successful? Go.
Making society a better place.
No, Rob. No. Look, we can actually rewind the tape. Are we rolling? What makes a politician successful?
Well, it's your responsibility to govern in the best interests of the people that you serve.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. John also hosts John Oliver's New York stand-up show on Comedy Central. Now in its fourth season, I am pleased to have him here at this table for the first time. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. It's
Thank
a pleasure.
You, Mr. Rose, it is a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, stop that, Mr. Rose. Now, so the expectations of doing this.
Yes.
In comparison to doing it.
Right, of doing Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart
Of doing
show.
Jon Stewart badly.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, no, just doing it.
No,
we'll get to badly later.
Okay, I appreciate that. No, the expectation, I knew it would be terrifying, and it did not disappoint.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure it would be quite as much fun as it's been. It's been a huge amount of fun.
What makes it fun?
Well, because you get to, I've worked on this show for 7 years, so it's like being a kind of NASCAR pit crew member. I know how the engine works, but I've never got to drive it before. And only when you drive it do you realise how fast it goes.
And you also realise it's a finely tuned machine.
It is an amazing... The show is an amazing machine. And again, it's a machine that John has very strategically and intricately built himself. He's taught almost everyone in that building how to do the particular version of their job that they do so skillfully. So... it was amazing. It's been. I'm even more impressed with the whole machine now than I was before I got the perspective of looking at it from on high.
Which raises the question, though. I mean, they finally tuned it for him, and then they're dropping you in to a machine that was finally tuned for him.
Well, he finally tuned it for him. I mean, it is built. He has built this thing over a decade and a half, which
Has it been that long?
It has been that long.
God.
I know. It's been a while. So yeah, my main responsibility was not to destroy that machine in 3 months. That was the main responsibility. But no, I guess it shows how well the machine works that he's built. If you can have someone who does not have his skill sets run it and not crash it into a wall.
What skill sets does he have that you don't have?
Well, almost
seriously.
all of them higher than me. Almost everything plus 50%.
So he has better timing than you?
I think that's probably objectively true. I mean, he's very good at... It's the things that probably you don't see that he's great at. Obviously, he's very funny when you see him perform the show, but...
Likewise, you are.
Running off, I appreciate that. But really, the skill is everything that happens before then. Performing the show is a bit of fun at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's not always fun. Sometimes it's painful. But the day is making that show that you put in the prompter. So he's amazing at that.
As finely tuned as you can possibly make it.
Yeah, as you can, and it won't always be as finely tuned as you want it to be. You will literally run out of time. But as a manager, he is spectacular. He's absolutely spectacular. And so, yeah, sitting in those shoes, I have even more respect for what he's able to do in overseeing the whole show.
He is the managing editor.
He's every. I mean, he has fingers in every part of the show. He is, you know, he himself describes it as a creative dictatorship. So everyone of the show contributes, but he is overseeing everything. You know, he's in with us at the start of the day, and he usually leaves after we've all left.
Walk us through the day. I mean, behind the scenes at the Daily Show. You get there at whatever time, and you start the first meeting at whatever time.
Yeah, so like 9 in the morning, we have a writers' meeting. So that will be discussing what we're going to do on the show that day. Now, hopefully, we will have a basic sense of that, especially if it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday from the previous afternoon, to try and get a little bit ahead. So studio production, who've already been in before that writers' meeting, they're going to bring up clips that they think would be useful, would be funny, would be good to juxtapose. And so from that discussion, which should take about 45 minutes. If it takes much longer than that, we're already sowing the seeds of trouble, which will bloom into a disaster later.
Yes.
So then people are sent away to do passes, either single passes at the script or two people working on one thing. They need to come in about an hour and 15 minutes. That's the most frantic point of the day, where you're looking at a blank screen and you're churning out jokes and ideas for John to look at. He'll then give you notes on those, go back, redraft. Possibly that will repeat itself once or twice more during the day. We'll rehearse at 4:15. That's literally just talking to an empty room.
Yep, right.
You know, comedy is great in an empty room. Then there'll be another rewrite between rehearsal and the show, and that's it. But you can rewrite jokes quickly. Jokes aren't that easy to write, aren't that hard to write. Right. Especially when you have, you know, people around you that are funny. What you can't do at that time of the day is completely redo the structure. So the point of view of the act has to be in place.
That would be the hardest thing, I think, is finding the narrative of the show.
Because you can rewrite jokes up to the last moment. You can even change them on the fly. What you can't do is change the spine of the show. If you mess that spine up, you are in big trouble.
Now, that's a group decision, figuring out what the spine is with writers and with John and with everybody.
It's a creative dictatorship.
Yeah.
You know, it's people will put in, and then John will...
What do you think? And then...
Yeah, and John will... He drives it. So
the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
That's right. Or he'll try and reframe it, saying, that's a great idea for another dimension where we do that. Let's do this instead. Yeah. And, even 10 times out of 10, he's usually right.
Yeah. And what the hardest thing for you to do has been, what, the interviews or what?
It was initially, because, as you can tell from the Australia piece, my training in interviews is relatively inhumane.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's to...
You're there to make fun of them.
It's to attack, or, you know, to certainly make fun of. Yeah. And so it's having a human conversation is not something that I've had any training in, either as a comedian or as a human being. I'm British, so human conversations are not something we excel in. We like to repress what you're talking about, and you talk around it. That's why you love Downton Abbey. Everyone's talking around what they actually think. So having a 6-minute conversation about the thing you actually want to talk about is very, very jarring to me.
But don't you like it?
I've learned to like it. Yeah,
because watching you have the impression, which is very good, is that the conversation could continue, and you sometimes do for the web. But it's the notion that you're getting a chance to do things in which you simply can explore your curiosity, and you do not have to go for the jugular at every other second.
And you know, that's the thing with the fill pieces. There's a crunch of time at work, so there is a sense where you have to go for the jugular or for the point fast. There's not much room to breathe in those. You are trying to get as many things and as many jokes as possible into one place. Whereas in a discussion with, you know, whoever, Senator Gillibrand, who was last Thursday, you can have you can let the thing breathe a bit more.
I mean, David Letterman at this table once said to me, you know, I'd love to do what you do. Well, the way you do it, because you don't have to have a laugh every minute.
Right.
You know, and I have to find a laugh every minute.
Yeah.
With some exceptions.
Yeah, that's right. But and also he has a contempt which is earned. So he can sit in front of an actor who he demonstrably has no interest in, and whose movie he clearly has not seen, and he can make fun of them, and that's fine because he's earned that over decades.
Yeah, right.
I can't do that. That's an unearned level of obnoxiousness.
That's an unearned error.
Exactly. You can't do that. So yeah, I would like to be able to sit back like Letterman does and say, this seems bad, this movie, and I admire your vigour in selling it, but it's not going to work.
So how do you approach it when you know the movie, you don't like the movie, and you don't particularly like the performance of the person sitting in front of you?
I've been quite lucky because most of the movies have been at the least tolerable.
Right.
And up from there. Otherwise, you try and find something else to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, yeah, exactly, right. Exactly. I asked you about all of this before I started this. Do you remember we met in DC?
Yeah, right.
And I was looking. That was the thing that was most concerning me. I was saying, so you got to help me. What's your ripcord?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's
I wanted you to say, remember your father to me. I haven't had to use that yet, which shows it's been all right. Remember your father to me. That was going to be my tell for
I'm
all
so
this.
embarrassed you told that. But it's true. It's true.
Yeah. So
because it makes people go into memory.
Yeah. Well, so I've tried that a couple of times. Like I've found out something about them of a more personal nature, or something that I thought that we shared, and we can try and talk about that to run out the clock.
Yeah. So you've been doing this for the summer. You've got from now until September 1st or so.
Yeah.
The reviews are fantastic. Without
appreciate
exception, I have not seen anybody. Let me just finish.
Without exception, you have not been on the internet then.
No, I have not. No, I have not looked at
You will
comments.
find exceptions there.
You mean comments or
I
actual
don't know.
reviews?
Either way, like anyone can write a
Well,
review.
Comments, they say everything.
Sure.
You know, I mean, you know, it's just, but I mean, I've seen people like The Guardian.
Right.
No, that may have come from a profile as well, but I mean, they're saying, you know, two things. One, they say, he's just done, he stepped into this job, it's great, it's different than John, but it's great.
Right.
Then they say, you are the heir to this show, or they ought to give you a show. They say everything.
Oh, that's nice.
Don't read it.
I don't think.
Do not read it.
Yeah, I'm not. I've kept well away from all of that. Anything around it. That was of the many things that John was helpful about before. He was saying just try and ignore the ripple effect of the show. You want to try and ignore that as much as possible because it becomes annoying. Like you will have even the conversation I had with Senator Gillibrand.
Right.
I saw a couple of things after the fact, which was a perfect example of him being correct in warning me, where, you know, it describes it as, attacks, eviscerates, you know, the Daily Show goes after, and it really wasn't.
No, exactly.
That kind of hyperbole does no one any favours, and it's so annoying, because it feels like it's recontextualising what was really supposed to be a polite, you know, probing interview, or interview in the old...
Yeah, I mean, when I saw you do that, I said, hey, well done, because you said to her, you were talking about the fact that she was the #1 recipient of money from Wall Street and Goldman Sachs, you know, and others, and you said, I thought brilliantly, what did they get for that?
But that's a human...
Explain to me.
But that's just on a human level. There's still a very artful question. That's what I want to know. That is my curiosity, and she didn't, you know, she evaded it because she's brilliant at evasion, and I like her. I just thought it might be more interesting to... It's easy to... I think I said to her, it's easy to have that conversation with someone that you naturally distrust, but it's harder and perhaps more interesting with someone who you admire.
Right.
Because, you know, her being compromised, not in a criminal sense, but in just financially compromised, you feel, is interesting for me to talk about, and she was expertly, balletically got around that point
by not answering the question.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think after this summer's guest hosting, we all pretty much know your politics?
I don't know. Why is that?
In other words,
it's like the Wizard of Oz. Is the
well, no. But I mean, in terms of the questions, in terms of the people you like, in terms of the people you admire, you come away with a sense of where you are in terms of sort of big policy questions?
Probably. I mean, does it matter? I don't think. I don't think my opinion really matters at all.
No, it does. It's not that it matters, but do you, in a sense of this, do you get a sense of where that person is?
Well,
there have been
maybe. I mean, there have been definitely the stranger moments of the summer. We've been lucky because summer is usually, as you know, slow.
Yes.
And, you know, we've had the Voting Rights Act, the Supreme Court decision on gay marriage, Royal Baby, inherently ridiculous.
So that's not slow.
No, it's been fast. NSA, Anthony Weiner, the incredibly ridiculous.
The gift that keeps giving, you say.
That's right, which cannot not give.
Yes.
But there were moments, there were like 2 shows in particular that are pretty hard to navigate when it's feelings of complete despair. The Trayvon Martin verdict, I felt like personally very, it's very difficult. There's a lot of emotion in your own, and even more so, I felt that was the first time I really felt John's absence.
We, the jury, find George Zimmerman not guilty.
Holy fook. So he's innocent? Wait, what? How could that possibly... You have got to be kidding. There is no... I can't even... Oh, my God. Which I guess is what we'll call tonight's segment. Because that feels about right. That feels, in your heart, about right.
The audience often look to John to help them articulate very complicated, painful feelings. And something like the Trayvon Martin verdict would be a moment where I could feel in the audience people are looking to John. Now, they're not looking to me. What they want is... And so I felt a lot of weight on my chest that day of having to try as responsibly and as humorously as I can to help people through very complicated feelings.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the time you said, we will have for you this summer everything you love about the show except the thing you love the most.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the show's going to be the same. It's just the reason to watch it is gone. So that's what this summer has been. Yeah. Sometimes you just feel, wow. It's like people opening a present and thinking, that's not the bike I wanted.
I did want a bike.
I wanted a bike, and I get that has 2 wheels. Yeah, but it's not as good.
No, and the color sucks.
Exactly. That's how it feels, kind of children with forced, oh, no, Grandma.
Oh, I know.
This was not it.
Yeah. I love this. I need this, but no.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted this so badly, and you
What
would not
about
give me
those
it.
people who say the Daily Show ought to be called the Daily Writers? That this is a show that writers have played a huge role in defining. That in no way takes anything away from John or you, but it is writers who've given it something special because they're so good.
We have great writers. There's no doubt about that, and John is... the head, he's not the head writer, but he is over the head writer.
Right.
John is, the uber writer, but it's collaborative beyond just the writing, our show. So, our studio production, with all the clips, montages...
Where do the clips come from? How many people do you have in the basement?
Well, you see, that basement, that shadowy basement...
Yes.
Is one of the engines of the show. So it's
a big engine of the show.
A big engine. So it isn't. The writing is great, but the writing comes from somewhere. So that it's a more collaborative model than perhaps a traditional structure of a television show.
It is the non-human genius of the show.
Yeah, right. So, we used to have, it's got slightly easier now, we used to literally just have a stack of TiVos recording everything and then people watching it like Clockwork Orange, just having to...
So you used to have that, what do you have now?
Well, now there are programs that are a little easier. You can type in keywords, LexisNexis style, but will...
It'll give you all the clips on that subject?
Will give you the clips, so you can type in a little phrase and it will...
And
if it's recent, so that has definitely eased the day, and it certainly means that we can work quicker. I was there in the days of the TiVo. That's when you are getting people from a basement coming up saying, I've seen things you wouldn't believe. It all gets a little Rutger Hauer down there.
And when they find something sweet, it's like, you got to see this.
Oh, there pretty much is. There are moments. There are definitely moments. We have one tonight as well, a moment where you just go, oh, that is... That is.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Once every few weeks, you will get something which they're even bringing up like a gift, saying, "Don't eat this at once." Like it's like a fine meal.
So
just
good.
sit back, cleanse your palate before you watch this, and then yeah, there are moments.
You can't believe that whoever said that said that.
Yes.
And just say thank you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We love you because you've given us something.
This is a great gift.
This is a great
And
gift.
please know that we are going to enjoy.
And Anthony Weiner does some of that too.
Anthony Weiner is like a different kind of joy roller coaster.
Right.
The really satisfying things are if you get the perfect juxtaposition.
Yeah.
So we have tonight Chris Matthews saying Senator Rand Paul is going to be the Republican nominee. Look, I do this for a living. That's where he stops. So then you say, well, do we have other examples of him getting predictions wrong? Because that's what we do for a living.
Yes.
And so, yeah, they very much came upstairs and said, here. How does Rudy Giuliani will be the next president of the United States sound? You go, that sounds...
No, you don't. You don't have him saying.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Coming right after he said Rand
That is
Paul.
tonight. That's literally what I'm looking forward to tonight. I'm looking forward to the air between saying this is what we do for a living and that clip starting to roll. That split second is what I wish I could live in that air forever.
Do you kiss it off by saying, this is what we do for a living?
Of course. Of course.
Of course you do.
Of course.
It's irresistible,
Of course, yeah.
isn't it?
Because so that is perfect. That is when they come upstairs with a clip and you just want to hug them and say thank you. Thank you.
Double his salary.
Oh, that's right. That's a
Let's
quadruple
go
that
find
salary.
more.
That's right. Please,
Exactly.
please more. Because it's Moorish. This is addictive. It's like heroin. This is just a gateway drug.
You cannot get enough.
Now I want something else. Because the crash comes afterwards.
It's absolutely true. Now, so what did they do anything, all these brilliant people, because you were in the chair and John wasn't?
Did we change anything?
Yeah, anything.
No.
And did they make... there's not much reference to your nationality, is it?
Not really, because you can, you
No,
can.
if you don't know
you can
that,
play
then.
with, like you could, like exactly that becomes sonically obvious,
Yeah.
and for stories like the Royal Baby, that plays in, but that would run its course.
That's right. It was a boy, and finally, we have a member of the royal family with an actual excuse for being a toothless, petulant, useless human being. That one could get me into trouble back home. This boy's entrance into the world came with so much pomp and circumstance, it's hard for it not to seem like a royal you to the other 370,000 babies born that day.
We believe the announcement is now being put on the easel. Yes, in fact, it is there. It's now being chained into the famous golden easel in front of Buckingham Palace.
Ooh, the golden easel. Don't look directly at it. You'll make it dirty with your peasant eyes. Incidentally, when there is not a royal birth announcement, that easel is traditionally used to hold the nude portraits of the Queen. I think legally I can still be killed for that.
There's only so many times you can play that card before it gets pretty lazy. So no, the day basically that was why I'd said it's going to be everything you love about the Daily Show without the thing you love the most about it, because the day has to function in the same way, because there is a momentum of the machine to the day that you need. There's a reason why John has built it this way. It's because it's the most efficient way. So the way we process the information and the bile, the sausage factory that we've created to make this palatable sausage from disgusting ingredients, that really has to stay the same. There's not time enough in the day to do it a fundamentally different way.
So the idea of showing where John is every day, so to speak, whose idea?
I can't remember.
Who's a writer? Was it a writer, producer, or somebody?
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, you tend to, like, ownership over jokes becomes... everything gets written and rewritten so many times. It's hard to pin down. I'm not sure who that was, but I liked the idea of it because it's John's show. No, I like the idea of thinking about him at the start of the show. You know, like, you don't want to change the title of the show.
Right.
This is his show. I'm driving his car. This is not my car.
No.
I'm just driving a beautiful car for a bit, and I'll throw the keys back at him.
And then you had all the other correspondents saying, how long have you been on this show? I've been on how many years?
Right. Right.
Why him?
Right.
For goodness sakes.
Yeah, it felt like in the first show there was going to be
Perfect touch.
an important catharsis. One, to acknowledge, like it's at the start, how strange, how physically strange it is to have the camera go in and not have the man you love there. Have a different man, have a different bike that you're disappointed by. And the other thing was to basically have correspondence in beautiful escalation.
We share the same feeling.
Saying, we hate you.
You chose the wrong guy.
Yeah, that's right.
You
This is
going
right, exactly. And also just sowing the seed of having everyone say, this summer's going to be a disaster. It's pointing at the elephant in the room and going, we all know it's there. We'll try and not make this a disaster, but the elephant's there and we all see it. Yeah.
When you joined, how did you get to The Daily Show?
I was working, I was writing in England, and they were always looking for people, and so...
they've got scouts all over the place.
Yeah, that's right. It's like just rolling down the window with a cigar.
There's a hot one in Liverpool.
That's right. Hey, look at you, kid. I'm going to make you a basic cable star.
Yes.
It's not going to be worth that much money.
You have a future in America.
Yeah. No, they were looking for someone, and I think Ricky Gervais...
That's what I heard.
Right.
Right.
I think John had asked him when they were promoting the book in London if he knew of anyone, and I'd never met him at that point, but he knew of the kind of stuff that I was writing. So it all happened very quickly after that. I came over here and...
did a piece, or did stand-up?
I did a piece. I landed a Sunday night, and I was on the show Monday. Yeah, and I'd never been to America before. So it was...
First time you'd ever been to America?
Yeah, so it moved fast. To the point that my stuff is still in storage in London. That's how fast it moved. So there's a time capsule of my previous life in South London.
And what were you doing in London at that time?
I was doing stand-up, I was writing comedy for various TV shows, and I was watching The Daily Show. Yeah. Because I loved... That was, for me, was a high standard of satire and political comedy on television. That's what I wanted to do in England, and it was very difficult, and my intention was not to join the thing I loved.
See, and what's interesting, and I think a lot of people would agree with that, is that we often thought that the best of satire had to be in London.
Yeah,
that was for a long time. Going way back to That Was the Week That Was and all that kind of stuff.
That might have been true then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that
Peter
was
Cook and all those
Peter
people.
Cook was absolutely, you talk about Beyond the Fringe, Peter Cook,
right.
Jonathan Miller, all of those guys. That probably was the high standard at that point. But what John has done over the last surprising decade and a half, I think he has the baton at the moment of this is as good as satire gets.
Not only that, he has created, because of what he does and what The Daily Show is, other daily shows in different countries.
Right. Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, Bassam Youssef,
exactly.
in Egypt, he will openly say that Jon Stewart is his hero and the standard by which he judges himself. So, he in Egypt, who has to live with the consequences of decisions making jokes, that is not just audience silence, but sometimes being arrested.
Right.
John is the high watermark of comedy.
So all the attention does not in the least make you take anything for granted.
I've been phoning it in since '98.
It's worked? So why stop?
No, we don't. You don't take things for granted.
And you work as hard today as you did when you began, and
probably
and harder.
Well, hopefully harder, because hopefully we've gotten better at what we do, which means we're able to synthesize more material and take larger chances. And so once you establish a rhythm of how you do the show, you have to work harder to evolve it and to constantly try and improve it. And ultimately what will happen is our voice will become somewhat tired and somewhat redundant and somewhat predictable, and that will be that. And 20 years from now, we'll all meet on a panel at the Aspen Comedy Festival, and we'll be real old, and the new comedy satire guy will interview us for a little segment on HBO, which by then will be TV, even though it's not TV now.
No.
And that'll be that. But that's not the measure of your life, and that's not... The measure of it is to be proud of what you're doing and to work with people that you enjoy working with for as long as you can do it.
When you came here, who did you look to for inspiration? I mean, somebody like some other correspondent like Stephen?
Yeah. I liked Stephen very much. I liked Rob Corddry a lot because he was very, very silly. Yeah. And so I watched their pieces a lot, and then I watched their unedited. I watched lots of Stephen's unedited tapes. So you could see him sit down with someone for an hour and a half, and you could see how tense it was in that room, and you could see what he was trying to do. And so I watched those quite religiously for the first few weeks because I wanted to see how you dealt with the tension in that room and how you got what you needed from the story and how focused you needed to be. So that was quite instructive.
Yeah. Actually, I found out here, having done this for 20-plus years.
No, come on now.
Yes,
Come on. Come on, 30, let's be honest.
Okay. Yeah. I wish. I'll be here. I'll be here at 30.
You'll get 30. You'll get your coin at 30.
Your gold coin. That's what they'll give me, right? A watch, maybe.
That's maybe a watch.
Maybe a watch.
Yeah, maybe a watch with just a hand saying, it's time. It's time.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
You can go to London and have a good time.
Right,
visit all the museums. Yeah. Whatever you want to do.
Whatever you like. Yeah.
So what's interesting to me about it is that when you watching it and watching what all of you are doing, it is that all artists that I've interviewed at this table study each other. Painters will tell you. They go to the museum and they're looking, and just what you said you did with Stephen.
Yeah.
You know, they're saying, how did he do that brushstroke? And why did he choose that color? Or she, or whatever it might be. Musicians listen to other musicians.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there is...
Oh, for sure. I've watched John pretty intricately, borderline creepily for 7 years.
But certainly clinically.
Yeah, well, no, because I want to see moments of the day, moments of the day, what decisions he makes and why he makes them. And
not because you want to sit in the chair.
No, because I want to learn what is going through his head because he's working at a different level. He's in a different universe of skill. And it was the same with Stephen. You know, I wanted to watch how he was getting to decisions, not necessarily to copy the decisions, but to understand how it had got there. And so, it's often the case with stand-up comedy. I like watching other stand-ups because it challenges what you're doing, and sometimes it'll make you think, oh, God, I need to work a lot harder. Yeah. You know, you watch Louis C.K. set and you think, I need to get better.
Yeah, exactly.
that is an embarrassing comparison.
That's good for you, too. It keeps
of course
you hungry,
it's good. Of course it's good, yeah. And
I am not even close to being where...
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't feel... The moment you start feeling comfortable, you are going to start... You know, your learning curve is going to get significantly flatter. Yeah. So you want someone to embarrass you into performing better.
Is it different... Is it a different or better training either way if you came from improv, Stephen, stand-up, you and John?
Yeah, it is definitely different. And you can definitely feel a slight instinct to do things different ways. So I'm very much of John's school in that I like constructing jokes and projecting them. The whole the friendliness of improv is not something that... I've come from a background in comedy which is combative. It is you versus the audience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not improv, which is we can do
if you don't
this.
like
we
this
can
joke,
do this
it's your
together.
fault.
That's right. Yeah. Or it's my fault, but I'm not going to cop to that.
I'm not going to admit it.
Right.
Yes. I really wasn't good, but I'll never admit it.
Yeah, they're definitely different backgrounds, and so that is there is a key difference there between John and Stephen.
You have said once that you have to kill the thing inside of you that's holding you back.
Right.
Kill the thing inside of you that's holding you back. Yeah. Turn off the human side.
Yeah. Well, that is true of field pieces in particular, because you can have to say things that are not going to be fun in the moment.
Looking for a reaction.
Looking for a reaction, looking for an honest reaction. But to not do it is to sit through and edit for 2 weeks afterwards where all you're thinking is, why didn't I say that thing? So in the gun control piece of the show, so I had to sit down with the ex-Prime Minister John Howard there. A relatively significant world statesman. I say relatively because he's Australian, so it's,
yes.
But I knew I was going to have to physically embody the... stridency of the pro-gun movement in America. And I was going to have to project that at him to get an honest response from him. Yeah. So you want someone to be visibly shocked by how dogmatic that point of view is. Now, the theory of that seems fine until you're sitting down with an ex-world leader and you're about to speak to him in a way that he's not used to being spoken to. Yeah. But you can't prep him beforehand because then it becomes too comfortable. Right. You want him to be as angry with you as he should be after what you have said, and you are saying something that someone else has said, and you're channeling that through. Right. So, there's nothing pleasant about that. But if you flick that switch in your soul, you get what you need, and then you either flick it on afterwards or you just leave it off because it's easier.
You flick off the switch that says it needs to be pleasant.
Yeah, Because if it is pleasant, you've probably got a problem. Because
it's not comedic.
It won't be comedic, and you won't read as real. No, what we were saying to him in the Australian piece is that his gun control scheme was a failure. He shouldn't have done it, and he was an idiot to try.
Because he's no longer in politics.
Right, exactly. And what you need, that is an offensive thing to say. So you need, to get the emotion out, you need someone to be offended. So you have to offend him.
And what does it do afterwards, after you finish the piece and you're getting ready to walk off?
So that was Rob Burbidge, the governor of Queensland. He was fine. John Howard was not that thrilled, because, you know, you can try and reassure him by, you know, saying, look, there's shades of irony at work here. Your scheme is going to be, I'm embodying an idiot. You can try that as much as you can. He was pretty annoyed. Now, when he saw the piece in the end, I've heard through various channels, he was pleased. I don't really care about that, but he was pleased. But no, in that moment, yeah, sometimes the last thing I want is to stop the interview, because that is when the camera comes down. All of a sudden, you go, someone, so what was that about? You go, I don't know. I've got to go.
My plane's late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those are the bad bits.
And what did Gillibrand say to you after you've done that whole period? What you basically said to her?
She was fine.
You know, Wall Street's buying you. What are they getting?
She was fine. I hope she was fine, because I don't think there was...
Oh, she did. She said how great you guys were, and just get tougher.
Right, but I mean, it was... I guess it was tough. I mean, it was just a question. It was just a question. It wasn't a gotcha. Yeah. She's not... It's not like, you know, she's openly... That's easily available information.
Now, being who you are and what it's done with you and for you and how great it is, would you like doing something like I do, you know?
No. What, for real?
Yeah.
No. I like jokes. No. I couldn't do this. I'm not qualified to do what you do.
No, you are. I mean,
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not qualified to sit down with a world leader and have a broad-ranging discussion about the issues of the day, because there are instincts that I have that are inappropriate in that scenario.
Couldn't shut them down, could you?
I can't shut them down. I couldn't shut them down when I was in a classroom at 8 years old, so I certainly can't do it now.
So when you decided you wanted to be a comedian, if you make a decision like that, what did your parents, who were teachers?
Yeah.
What did they say?
They were, here comes the parents thing.
I should never have told you.
They were, I see the tell.
It wasn't that.
No. They were, I think they were, it's hard for them to watch. My mom doesn't love seeing me behave that way. She doesn't love to see it.
What would she like?
Well, she'd like me to be
nice John.
She'd like me to be a nice boy.
Well, how about John, who gets everybody to laugh? That's
yeah,
great.
But I know.
Shows you how popular my John is.
John being
Johnny. Did she call you Johnny?
She doesn't care about that. She has never called me Johnny. That's a level of affection and friendliness that British people don't have. Okay. Yes. She calls me Mr. Oliver. No. They were. I think it's hard for them. It's hard for them to watch a side of you which is aggressive.
Oh, really?
I think so, because even though that aggression is earned, and sometimes it's for a particular reason, she would often say, I don't like watching those interviews. You're too nasty to people. And you go, I don't even want to.
It's comedy, Mom. It's comedy.
Yeah, but you know, she doesn't know. It's not funny to her.
I don't want to.
Comedy's
well, then you failed. No. If it's not funny to her.
I remember the first time they came to New York, someone came up to me on the street and went, "Oh, you're so funny," and she got into an argument with this girl. She was going, he's not that funny. He's not that funny. Why do you think that? I'm going, Mum, this is not how this is supposed to go. She goes, I just want to know why she thinks you're funny, because you've never been that funny, and I think they like you too much. She goes, what are you doing? You're my kryptonite now.
They're making a mistake in liking you.
So this poor girl didn't know what she was getting into, having this British mother saying, why do you like my son?
I promise you I'm not doing what I dodged you. I promise you. But tell me about the time when your dad, who loved soccer, or do you call it football?
Football.
Okay, I know you do. I know it's football, but I would read interviews with you in which you would talk about soccer.
Yeah.
You know,
that's just
to make it palatable to an American audience.
I just need people to understand what I'm talking about.
But you would never say that.
I would at home? No, that's a suicide.
Well, no, but I mean in your head. You would never even think of it as soccer.
I think of the word soccer? No. I'm thinking of the word football, and then I'm thinking of American ears' inability to...
to transcend that their football is not our football,
right, and so then
our football is not their...
Right, then my head's getting angry, then it's just giving up. Yes. Then I'm saying soccer.
Yeah, but your dad loved it. And you saw an emotion from him.
Absolutely loved it. He was the only times, he's not a very tactile guy. Right. It was the only time, I remember the first time I remember a hug from him was watching Liverpool play and they scored, and he hugged me and you think, that's...
It was about football.
Exactly, but was it about football? Yeah, probably. Yeah, no. But I think British.
You were nearby.
British, yeah, exactly. That's right. It was me or a couch.
That's right.
I think British people tend to be so repressed that we channel things. We channel our emotions like kind of emotional volcanoes. We challenge them into controllable moments, like football matches or royal funerals. Those are the moments when we'll express anything.
Now, do you think about becoming a naturalized citizen?
Maybe. I've got a green card now.
I know you do.
Yeah, and so
that was a nice little ceremony they gave you back at Comedy Central.
They did, and it was important to me. It's weird, 'cause I got married to an American, but it was important to me that it sounds strange, but it was important to me that I got it before I got married, because I wanted to be. It was very, very stressful living here on a visa. Very stressful, and I wanted to stay, and the longer I stayed, the more I loved it here, and the more you feel how rootless you actually are, that it could be gone in a second. It could be gone. So I really wanted to kind of be wanted here. I wanted the official recognition of the US Immigration Service to say, you're okay, kid.
Yeah, that's right. You're good enough for us. Come on in.
Yeah, and so it was only on getting that green card that I realised I'd actually thought about it every day.
Now, is it a true story that some immigration official said to you,
yeah,
we don't like anybody making fun of us?
That was when I was down to 12-month visas, and so that meant every year I had to go to London. You have to get out of the country. I had to go to the American embassy, and then you have to talk to an official there. And for all the help that I got from Viacom lawyers, they will basically say, just try and get someone with a friendly face who looks like they're having a good day. There's a lot of power in that middle management. Yeah. And so I walked up to the cubicle, and this woman with an ashen face said, give me one reason why I should let you back in my country to insult my president. And my blood ran cold. I felt my life in America dissolve onto the floor. And I said, I don't really see it that way. I'm just kidding. I love the show. And she did not get the huge laugh from me that she was looking for. What she got was to go, I get how that's funny. Those are high stakes you're playing with there. Okay, because I'd just seen my dream die.
What are the circumstances that would make you decide to go ahead and become a naturalized American citizen?
I'd need to be here for longer. I'm not eligible for that yet.
But you want to do it?
I think so. I would like to, yeah. I mean, I'd like to vote. At the moment, I'm enduring taxation without representation, Charlie.
Yes.
Now I get it.
We fight over that,
now I get how annoying that is.
We fight over that.
Now I finally get it.
You mentioned your wife. Tell me about your wife, because I never knew about this until Kristen Gillibrand mentioned it in the interview.
Yeah, I hadn't intended to talk. I'd just been talking about it backstage about it. So my wife was a combat medic in Iraq in the U.S. Army with 1st Cavalry. So yes, we have. We're an odd match.
How you met her.
I met her because she was at both conventions back in 2008.
Yeah.
And I was getting chased by security because I couldn't get arrested because I was on the visa. You get arrested, you're gone. One strike,
arrest. Gone.
You're gone.
Bye.
So I was literally running from security because we were shooting somewhere we were not supposed to be shooting. And these army guys hid us. And, she hid us, and then we got talking, and then we...
Then you met her again at the Democratic Convention.
Yeah, and then we emailed back and forth, and then we met up and moved in a few weeks later. It was very odd.
And then got married soon.
Yeah.
Is she still in the Army?
No, she's out now. She's in medical school because there's this ridiculous situation where none of your credits are transferable in the U.S. Army. It is. I can't even get it. This is so frustrating. I can't even get it. We actually tried to do something on the show about it.
This is almost as bad as as the fact that the veterans aren't getting the kind of funding and kind of treatment they should get.
It's a mess. The VA is a mess. It is a spectacular mess, and it's a mess from the outside, from the inside, from me. Tangentially being inside it with my wife, it is it is easy to ignore because it's so easy to say, we want the best for our veterans should get the best. They do not get the best. That is objective. And also the problem is this is not a group of people prone to complain, so it becomes very easy to ignore. VA hospitals are brutal. To see politicians say we give our veterans the best healthcare, that is obscene.
Take back to John when he takes on that case. It's a totally different demeanor, though. I mean, it's not comedic even. The point is,
I think
there's a place that several degrees apart from something that you can be satirical about.
Yeah, I think he and I have a bit of a trigger with that stuff. With that level of, well, I guess first you might be talking about the Zagroda bill with him, which hurt him. So yeah, that comes from, usually you try and wrap your anger in jokes. Occasionally your anger is so big that it becomes that you see it peak out a lot more. The Zagroda bill for him was a absolutely monstrous injustice, and the VA stuff as well is something that we've both found just mind-blowingly concerning.
How is this going to change your life?
It's not.
What? Sure.
Well, how is what going to change my life?
Doing this summer as Jon Stewart?
Summer, I don't think it is going to change my life. I don't think it is. I honestly don't think so. That's not really occurred to me.
I honestly think so.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because because of the show, because you've done it so well.
Oh, thanks.
And well, I mean, it's clear. I mean, I said on the air, they're thinking about a show for him already. I know you may say I have enough shows.
I guarantee you. I don't think so. I don't think. Honestly, that is not. There might be a time for me to have that mental conversation with myself.
Yeah.
But I've been so concerned about not letting Jon down this summer because of everything he's done for me. The fact that he has taught me, if I've done this well at all, it is solely down to him. He has taught me how to do this job. So I desperately did not want to let him down. That's where the emotional stakes really came from. You think, I don't want to screw this up because he's trusted me with this, and for that trust to be misplaced would be devastating.
He says, he actually loves the show, and as you love the show, and as I love this show, and Stephen loves this show.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to do, to be able to have a show that you can shape and fix and change, and give wings to...
There are tough days. There are definitely...
What's a tough day?
A tough day is when you're having to deal with something where you're having to deal with just poison. It's not so much like finding, we didn't do... Well, things like the verdict in Florida, the Trayvon Martin, the George Zimmerman verdict, or the fact that the other thing that really, really annoyed me over this summer was on Fox News, there were a lot of people talking about the minimum wage and the McDonald's workers' strike.
Yeah, right.
They were so brutal in their complete contempt for fast food workers and referring to these minimum wage like, these are jobs that you get when you're 16.
Yeah, no, the guy made that point. One of the commentators made that point.
These are not for 16-year-old jobs.
It was great.
The average is now 28 years old with kids, and it just felt like punching down in the worst way. Like really, or dislocating your shoulder, you're punching down so hard.
Exactly.
And it felt so contemptuous. And we've really not done much about Fox News at all this summer. That day, I was so annoying from the morning meetings. Sometimes those morning meetings, you're just taking in poison, and you're trying to find a way to distill that into something which is funny and palatable, or at least cathartic at the end of the day.
Why haven't you done much Fox News this summer?
I don't know. It's just not. It's been so fast.
Yeah.
Like there's been so many other things of substance to talk about.
Does it seem like just yesterday you started this?
Yeah, it does actually. It's gone quick. I think it's gone very fast because certainly looking at the first day, that this is weird, isn't it? Looking at September, that I felt that's a long way away, and now we're into the last week, and I just can't even believe it's gone so fast.
And you can't imagine how it's going to change your life.
No, unless you're looking at me now. Now you're making me nervous. Have I really not addressed this in any way?
No. It is by all. I mean, I didn't read every comment on the internet, but I read a lot of the critics and what they're saying, and it has nothing to do with Jon. It's always all praise Caesar. But at the same time, there is a sense that, man, you stepped up and hit a triple, if not a home run.
I really appreciate that. A triple, and you had to slide for third.
Yes, that's true. I stretched a double into a triple.
And the third base coach was saying, don't come round.
That's right, yeah. Right.
You went in head first, and there's maybe an error. Anyway, the point is you're standing at third base.
Yes, exactly. You're on. You may come home.
Honestly, I really have not thought beyond just seeing Jon when he gets back and saying, OK, this is what's happened. Here's your show back.
Yeah, and
am I fired? Please don't let me be fired. That's my dream conversation, is having him say,
or like they say in the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm.
That is, believe me, that was absolute, a full Hippocratic Oath at the start of the summer.
Is that right?
Do no harm.
First do no harm.
First do no harm. Just have this patient live. Keep this patient alive. Yeah.
Now, is he seeing it at all?
He's been watching some of it. Yeah. I mean, he's in the Middle East.
Does he give you notes?
He's been. We talked a lot before he left. He was really generous with his time at a point in where he didn't really have much. But yeah, so I've emailed him questions, but we haven't talked about specific shows. He's just said I think it's weird for him to watch. If it's weird for everyone else to watch, it must be doubly strange for the man whose show it is.
I don't watch when other people sit in the chair.
Yeah. I wasn't imagining he was going to.
The chair.
You just don't watch. You're not a watcher.
No, I'm not a watcher.
Who sits in for you?
You, next time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Now, that's it. That's my new role in America. I'm the substitute. I've got tearaway pants. I'll come in. Welcome. Charlie Rose is off for the summer, directing Transformers 6.
That's right. Who knew that Jon Stewart was a film director?
Yeah. Huh? I know. Look, this is a passion project for him. This is
passion because of the subject. Because I interviewed the same guy that this movie is based on. Yeah, exactly. Used to write for Newsweek.
Yeah, so exactly. And so tangentially, we are connected to this story, the show, because Jason Jones was in Iran.
Right.
He does this piece. He interviews Maziar.
Right.
There's the Green Revolution emerges. Maziar is arrested after we've gone, and as part of his 100-day interrogation, they say you met with an American spy. Right. And this is Jason literally in a joke spy outfit. And I think that's where Maziar was saying, well, no, this is a joke. And they went, but this is a spy. And then I think at that point he realised he was in real trouble.
I mean, you do not want them to think you're a spy.
No. And if your defence of this is objectively a ridiculous comedy bit, when that doesn't work, you're in deep trouble.
Except they make movies about things like this.
Right, and so Maziar wrote a book. Yeah. John loved the book, and he wrote a screenplay.
I mean, Argo. They make movies like Argo.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, so he's written this screenplay, and he's directing it right now, and then he'll come back in a couple of weeks, and it'll be done. It's a bold adventure that he's been on.
And is he excited about it? Does he find that? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, look, he's put in. He has definitely earned the right to do this.
If you were not a comedian, what would you be? A sad case.
Boy. Yeah, I'm a frustrated comedian, a footballer.
But you thought about that.
I thought that was plan A. I mean, that was plan A. And this isn't plan B.
Plan A, you decided that it's just the athleticism is not here in the sufficient amounts to make me.
That is the absolutely the nicest way to put it. Yes, the athleticism is not here in sufficient amounts. That is a really nice way of having a coach say you're. I would have preferred. I would much prefer if they said, John, the athleticism is not there in sufficient amounts for this not to be a disastrous life decision for you.
It was a terrible choice of language. I should have said it the way you do.
This is not a club in your bag, John.
It's even better. It's not a club in your bag.
Yeah. So, no.
But you actually thought about it for a moment?
I dreamt about it for my childhood. Not just thought about it for a moment. Yeah, that was all I ever wanted in the world.
The other thing that interests me is about comedians in general. Number one is you say failure is the best experience.
Definitely.
You know, you've got to be able to know that people are looking at you, wanting you to make them laugh.
Yeah.
And you have not done that.
You learn, right. You tend to learn more from, as a stand-up, you learn more from bad gigs than good gigs. Because, a good gig that's what you're supposed to do. A bad gig, you actually have to examine, what did I do wrong? If I did nothing wrong, then you kind of stand your grounds, to borrow a Floridian phrase.
And do comedians do what you have been suggesting you do, think hard about things and also overthink about things?
Oh, yeah, overthink.
Do they really?
Yeah, because the problem with being a comedian is you probably have too much time to think about things and yourself. Yeah. And neither of those things are particularly healthy. So, you definitely overthink. That is the one of the negative consequences. You think too much about stuff.
Thank you for a great summer.
Oh, it's been a true pleasure. It's been fun.
John Oliver for The Hour, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.